Hi guys, I'm Mary Babick. I'm here to present the hunter side of the sport. And like Chester, are completely open to questions because that's how we're going to learn. All right? So just starting with our first picture here, it's a picture from the past, and I'd like to note that style it knows no generation, and correctness knows no generation. And I think that's something that we may have forgotten as we go along in the hunter side. And it's something we'd like to bring out again. So for us, our job is to provide developing hunter enthusiasts the opportunity to participate in an evaluation of a young horse in the hunter discipline within a competitive environment, and to offer young horse owners and breeders the opportunity to have their horse evaluated by experts on the prospect's own merits as well as against each other within a competitive event. And it's an excellent opportunity to promote the breeding of participating horses by showcasing and placing emphasis on the sire, dam, and dam sire, which is something at this moment the hunter side hasn't really been focusing on as much. Our qualifications, the horses have to be recorded with the Federation and registered with the USHJA, and they also must be enrolled in the USHJA Pre-Green Incentive Program. The additional qualifications include participation in 2 pre-green incentive classes between December 1st, 2013 and September 1st, 2014. And we've chosen to do that with the 2 classes because that's the current requirement for the program itself. We will have age-restricted sections offered with proof of age, a 4-year-old section, a 5-year-old section, and a 6-year-old section. And just as driving, we have the same age verification. They can prove their age by their breed registration papers, valid FEI passport, USEF horse recording certificate, which includes year of birth, affidavit of age verification signed by two veterinarians. And if you use those last 2, you would be potentially subject to an inspection by the competition veterinarian to verify age prior to competing. And I have to say the last 2 are put in there because from the hunter sport, we don't necessarily always have verification of a horse's age or breeding, and that's something that we're working very hard on fixing, but we haven't quite gotten there yet. So the other disciplines have been very generous and allowed us to put that in. As far as our course specifications, we'll have different specifications for each age, and all courses are subject to the approval of the judges. So our 4-year-old section, the fences are to be 2.9 in height, spreads not to exceed height of the fence, including the ground lines. For the 5-year-olds, fences are to be 3 foot in height, spreads not to exceed height of the fence, including the ground lines. For the 5-year-olds, fences are to be 3 foot in height, spreads not to exceed height of fence, including ground lines. And for 6-year-olds, will be 3 foot to 3.3 in height, with spreads, again, not exceeding the height of the fence, including the ground lines. Our phases will use specification for each age section will be utilized, and again, all courses are subject to approval by the judges. We'll have the model phase, where horses will be scored on conformation and movement on the line. The hunter under saddle phase, where horses will be scored on movement, manners, and way of going under saddle. The first over fences phase, where horses will be scored over a hunter course of fences suitable for each age group. And the second phase, which is the same basic idea. So that will go for each age group. Now this is where we start to get into a little bit of a difference from how we have done things with hunters in the past. In the model phase scoring, we're going to evaluate each horse against a standard. The scores will be awarded between 0 and 10 in each of the 5 categories: conformation, movement on the line, expression, presentation, and then fitness and conditioning as one category. And each of those things will get that score, and then the entire score will be multiplied by a coefficient of 2 to bring it to 100. Yes?
A question about the model phase. Are you going to be basing it on the hunter breeding, or are you going to be basing it on potential for performance?
I think that we're going to be basing it on potential for performance. That's the most important.
It seems to me that would be a proper way to go, so that people would understand they didn't have to bring a conformation horse in order to be acceptable to this competition.
I would think you wouldn't necessarily have to bring a conformation horse, but you would want a horse with conformation that would allow the horse to be successful.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now in the under saddle, again, each horse will be evaluated against a standard and scored between 0 and 10 in each of 5 categories. And again, this will be multiplied by a coefficient of 2 at the end. And the 5 categories are movement and uniformity of movement in both directions at the walk, movement and uniformity of movement in both directions at the trot, movement and uniformity of movement in both directions at the canter, overall impressions of rideability and adjustability, and then suppleness, elasticity, use of the shoulder and hind end, and overall naturalness and attentiveness to the task at hand. And that, the part of overall naturalness, this goes back to what Chester was saying about a horse that might twitch its ear or shake its head. You know, we want people to understand that the rise of the robot in the hunter world is not necessarily what we're looking for. In a young horse, you would not expect a horse to be as quiet and well-made as an older horse. Now moving to the over fences phase, the scoring of the over fences phase consists of 2 components. The first score is to be based on traditional hunter judging standards, and the judge would be given a judge's card, and the horses would be ranked against each other. So if you're a hunter judge and a good score for you is, 90, then you'd be giving a 90, and a horse of less quality might get a 78 or a 79. Okay, so that's what they're looking for on that. Now the second set of marks is where we're going to really differ, and this is where we're going to need to educate our licensed officials a little bit. The second score is derived by evaluating each horse against a standard and applying a score between 0 and 10 in each of 10 categories. And that, the 10 categories are scope, range, and athletic ability, suppleness of the horse's body over the fence, use of the head and neck to facilitate correct jumping style, use of the front end or front to facilitate correct jumping style, use of the hind end to facilitate correct jumping style, engagement of the shoulders and forearms to work through the withers, union of front and back end of the horse to create proper bascule, rideability and adjustability of the horse to meet the questions asked, overall naturalness and attentiveness to the task at hand, expression and presentation. So that's very different. And as you will see tomorrow when we go over the judging criteria in more detail with our films and you have a judge's card, that I think will help you understand it as well. To determine our results, we will add together the scores from all 4 phases of the event. So in the model phase, the combined score from 5 categories will be doubled, maximum of 100 points. The same for the hunter under saddle phase. Hunter over fences phase 1, the score for the over fences phase shall not be doubled. And then the same for our second one. And then of course they'll receive their evaluation score as well. So it makes it a total of 600 potential points that a horse could receive. And we did consider going to percentages, but percentages in our world are very confusing, so we've decided to just stay on the straight numeric. We've had some small success with that with the Hunter Derby and people starting to understand scores of larger than 100, so I think we should be all right with that. As far as our officials are concerned, judges and course designers must be approved by the USHJA and must hold a large R officiating status. Judges will be educated in the application of the system prior to this event, and this system for scoring age group young horses will be integrated into our licensed officials' education programs. A scribe shall be provided for the judges to assist with notating comments and tabulation of scores. And then again, I just have to note that there's a picture from the past, as you can see from the attire, because that coat and those pants aren't really in fashion anymore, but there is a picture of a horse that style knows no generation. Questions? Comments, ways we could improve our...
Diana DeRosa. So if you were to look at the comparison between the way we judge now and the way that these classes are going to be judged, could you just point out what you feel? I mean, I gather it would be this extra 10-point type aspect, and the fact that the horse doesn't have to be as perfect. But is that correct, or is there more to the differences in the way they're going to be scored?
You are correct, but there is a larger difference in that when you're going, let's say in the over fences portion where you're getting the two separate scores. So normally a horse comes in, it performs, and it makes a mistake, it swaps off or misses a lead change for a couple of strides in the corner. That's our normal judging standard, but now the second set of the over fences part will really talk to the horse's potential. And that's what we're looking to identify. We don't obviously have an international side to our sport. Our closest would be International Hunter Derby. But we are looking for those horses that have the potential to go to the highest level of our sport. And therefore, those things will help us evaluate.
So the horse that swaps a couple of strides, is that still going to be penalized?
I think it depends on why the horse swaps. Did the horse just swap and stay absolutely straight? It didn't have any effect on its jumping style. Its rhythm stays the same, but it made a young horse mistake. That's a lot different than a horse that swaps and dives to the corner, shows, an imperfection in its style. I think there's a difference between a slight mistake and a fault of training or of the horse's correctness. Does that help?
Hello?
Oh, there you are.
Hi, Lisa Laurie. Will you be having qualifiers? Will you be speaking about that?
The qualifiers are the USHJA's pre-green incentive stake classes. So as long as a horse is enrolled, that is an enrollment program. So as long as the horse is enrolled and competes in 2 of those classes, you don't have to even win a ribbon. You just have to compete in them. And you don't have to show in the pre-green finals to be part of the Young Horse Championship. Anyone else?
Where are the pre-green finals going to be held?
This year's pre-green finals were held here at the Horse Park, and I believe that we'll do the same thing next year. Well, thank you all very much for your time.